one of the most important and sacred foundations of our country is obviously our Second Amendment. Just imagine what our country would be like today. Imagine what would be going on right now if we didn't have that right. You know, most people believe we have three branches of government, that being the executive, referring to the presidency, the legislative, referring to the Congress, and of course the judiciary, referring to the courts. But I submit to you, we have a fourth branch of government as intended by our founding fathers and mothers. And that fourth branch being us, the citizens, the people. And what gives us our checks and balances on the other branches is our right to vote. And what gives our right to vote any meaning, any substance, is our Second Amendment right to keep and bear arms. You see, the Second Amendment is the cornerstone of our American Republic, without which our nation would not exist today. How else could our founding fathers and mothers have fought off the tyranny of the British Empire if it was not for their belief and acceptance that every individual has a God-given right to self-defense and a right to keep and bear arms in furtherance of that defense? Gun control is not only unconstitutional, but it runs afoul of the very principles and ideals of our founding fathers and mothers. Contrary to the statements, beliefs, and positions held by gun control advocates, gun control is not designed to keep guns out of criminals' hands. It's designed to keep guns out of the hands of law-abiding citizens by criminal elements within our government. Enemies of our Constitution. And yes, we have such enemies within our government. Enemies who view our Constitution as an obstacle to their personal agendas and the implementation of their public policies. If we are divested of our Second Amendment rights, we become powerless to combat the tyranny of a government and its oppression. Should one ever come to power here in America, we will cease to exist, in the words of our great President Abraham Lincoln, as a government of the people, by the people, and for the people. Indeed, it is the Second Amendment that protects us as a people to ensure our constitutional form of government for us and for our posterity. Again, in the words of President Lincoln, the Second Amendment guarantees that this nation, under God, shall not perish from earth. Prior to his election, our president observed that there are many of us who cling to our guns and our Bibles. Yes, Mr. President, we do cling to our guns and Bibles. And not out of ignorance, but out of the recognition that your administration, and other like-minded enemies of our Constitution want to take away our guns and replace our Bible with a Koran. Why? Because it is the politically correct thing to do. Now, I support freedom of religion, but I do not support this administration's preferential treatment of the Islamic faith to the exclusion of others, folks. And that is what political correctness is. Government to support a discrimination of that which is actually correct. You see, they have to politically make the discrimination correct. In other words, it's the government's attempt at our forced cultural acceptance of their ideological objectives. They have assaulted and invaded our minds in an attempt to control our thoughts and our way of thinking. A friend of mine was recently troubled when her 8-year-old son was told that he could not bring a particular book to school, even though the students were instructed to bring their most treasured item for show and tell. Can you guess the book? Can you guess it? That's right, the Bible. Have our school boards adopted the policies of the Nazis? Have they adopted the ideology of Adolf Hitler, where unapproved books, in this case the Bible, are burned and fanned? What is scary, folks, is that this story is true. And it did not occur in cosmopolitan New York, Los Angeles, or that liberal bastion known as Boston. In fact, it happened right here in Florida, but not in Miami, in small town, rural Dade City, Florida. Now, I want you to think for a second. I want you to come to your own conclusion. And let's just change the story just a little bit. And let's replace that 8-year-old's Bible with a Koran. Child takes his Koran to school as his most treasured item, wants to share it with his students. Now, how do you think it's going to end, the story? Write it out. What is the ending? Do you think that child will be told he can't bring his Quran to school to share as his favorite book and most treasured item? Of course not. That would be culturally insensitive. We are being Islamophobic. Islamophobic, it's a new word that the loony left has come up with. America is not Islamophobic. And as this current administration has shown, as your representative, our representative to the rest of the world, we've actually become Islamophiles. I know it's sick, like pedophiles. Now ask yourself, why did you come to the conclusion that you did? Now you might say that it would be more appropriate to include Buddhist and Hindu texts alongside the Quran in this example, albeit a real life example. But I know who our enemies truly are. They make no secret about it. Do we need to be reminded about 9/11? Freedom of religion is not the acceptance of all faith to the exclusion of Judeo-Christian religions, which incidentally our country was founded upon. It is the acceptance of all religions in our society. An Islamic faith that promotes the destruction of all other religions and the wholesale killing of their followers as infidels is a violation of freedom of religion. An Islamic faith that promotes the application of Sharia law is a violation of our First Amendment Establishment Clause and our long recognized tradition of separation in church and state. Simply put, such a faith has no place in America under our Constitution. Now ask yourself, why is it we live in a country where we'll accept that a young child will be told not to bring their Bible to school, but if a child is told not to bring their Quran, then those people will say it's discrimination? And when I say accept, I don't mean we support or understand the reason, but rather we accept that this is the America we live in today as dictated by those people, where our child will be told not to bring their Bible to school, but the Quran will be encouraged. And who are those people? Nancy Pelosi, Barney Frank, Harry Reid, and yes, our president, Barack Hussein Obama. If we do not stand up and choose, indeed demand our identity, it will be chosen for us. And right now, it is being chosen for us by those people. If you reject my premise that they want to take away our Bibles and replace them with a Quran, then why is it that our president openly supports the construction of a memorial to the 19 hijackers on the very hallowed ground where so many of us died at the doorstep of their destruction? Yet, our president says nothing about the reconstruction of the St. Nicholas Church, the only house of worship actually destroyed on September 11, 2001. In the words of congressional candidate George Demos, Mr. President, please stand up and defend our Judeo-Christian values. Express your public and unwavering support for the St. Nicholas Church and ensure that it is rebuilt. If you reject my premise that the world views us as Islamophiles, then why is it our government is paying for the American Muslim World Tour of Peace and Friendship, sending and sponsoring the very imam who insults our dignity and is spearheading the construction of the Cordoba House Mosque at Ground Zero? Mr. President, America does not need to extend the hand of peace and friendship to the Muslim world. The Muslim world needs to extend its hand to America in peace and friendship. The construction of the Cordoba House Victory Mosque at Ground Zero is no gesture of peace or friendship. And if you didn't know, folks, Cordoba, Spain, was the seat of the Caliphate in the 8th century after it was conquered by the Muslims. Cordoba, in Islamic symbolic terms, means Islamic rule in the West, their dominance, their conquering of us. It does not mean coexistence or tolerance as suggested by the Imam, unless coexistence and tolerance is interpreted as referring to Islamic rule. An Imam, by the way, who is both sponsored and supported by our government. Yes, Mr. President, we are definitely ready for some change. President Obama promised positive change for our country. Do you think he's lived up to that promise? Do you think think so? Well, folks, he actually has brought some positive change. He brought all of us here together so we can replace those people with our people. People who believe in our Constitution. Patriots willing to die for our great nation in furtherance of our Constitution and for the ideals and a country our founding fathers and mothers so sacredly entrusted to our care. Do not let us be the ones to lose, to so easily give up what our founding fathers and mothers fought so hard for to ensure for us today and for the generations to follow. It is our responsibility as the fourth branch of government to ensure our government's compliance with the Constitution. When our president rejects, our legislature ignores, and our courts refuse to uphold, we will fight to protect and preserve our Constitution. I want to read to you a quote from the Honorable Alex Kaczynski, a federal judge from the Federal Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. And if you have any knowledge about that system, well, criminals have a lot of rights, but average citizens have no constitutional rights. But Justice Kaczynski got it right. And in this dissenting opinion in which the Ninth Circuit rejected an individual's right to keep and bear arms, which thankfully our Supreme Court has now recognized, it embodies the spirit and the essence of the Second Amendment, and it's important to us as Americans. The Second Amendment is a doomsday provision, one designed for those exceptionally rare circumstances where all other rights have failed, where the government refuses to stand for re-election and silences those who protest, where courts have lost the courage to oppose or can find no one to enforce their decrees. However improbable these contingencies may seem today, facing them unprepared is a mistake a free people get to make only once. Once. Indeed, it is the Second Amendment that ensures that our government is a government of the people, by the people, and for the people, albeit a people who have the right to arm themselves as guaranteed by the Constitution. And what exactly is the Constitution? What is it? What does it do? It's a document that protects us, the citizens, the people. And what or who does it protect us from? It protects us from the government. That's why we have a Bill of Rights, the limitation on powers. We are at a crossroads, and we must fight to preserve our Constitution. It is the Constitution that defines our American identity. If we do not demand our American identity, it will be chosen for us. God bless you all.